You know, we joke about dysfunction and all that in Washington, but this time it's serious, and Republicans themselves, including party leadership, they've got a big challenge on their hands here. We've got observers calling this a make or break week for the majority's ability to govern. Republicans wanted it, they got it in the midterms, and the question is, what are they going to do with it? But even in the center of the policy standpoint, some are wondering whether their agenda is still out of step with voters. And Andrew, some of this stuff is really easy for the public to put their arms around.
It is. That big week for Republicans, though, Rich, starts with the House and Senate set to vote on their respective budget plans. If they can work out their differences, a repeal of Obamacare might be next, but that's a big if. Both chambers have different agendas and different bases they have to appeal to, and the biggest difference is on spending. House Tea Partiers want more spending cuts. The more moderate Senate wants increases, especially on military spending. Not clear if the two chambers can reconcile those differences. Meanwhile, the Senate remains stuck on an anti-sex trafficking bill. It's being held up by Democrats because Republicans added a plank on federal abortion funding. That bill is now stuck, which is also holding up the long-delayed confirmation of Loretta Lynch as Attorney General. One part of the House budget raising eyebrows: food stamps. House plan could kick 11 million people off the subsidy program. There are calls on the party to increase requirements for people to seek or get work or risk being cut off or cut back from their food stamp benefits. And finally, Democrats are beginning to push back on one safety net issue, the minimum wage. Democrats in the White House have been pushing for a minimum wage increase to $10.10 an hour. Now some Democrats are going up to $12 as a minimum wage. But the GOP remains opposed to any wage increase. It's an issue likely to be prominent in 2016, from House races to the Senate to the race for the White House. Rich?
And give an idea what we're talking about, sex trafficking, because even Republican senators who signed on this thing, they thought this was a foregone conclusion. All of a sudden, somebody read it and said, wait a minute, you just put in this poison pill on abortion. And the Republicans were like, listen, just go ahead and pass it, and we'll figure out something later. Democrats are like, absolutely not. What are you guys doing? They're like, it doesn't really matter. They're like, then take it out. And they're like, if we do, we're going to have a problem in our hands. I think even Republican leaders are embarrassed by this thing. I mean, sex trafficking. I mean, who's for sex trafficking?
And the bill is essentially that simple. I mean, it beefs up the penalties and increases enforcement against sex trafficking, which I think is universally opposed. But there was a conference with Democrats where they said, here are the changes we made to the bill that was submitted last go-round. They listed about 7 changes. Democrats admit they didn't read the bill. But one of the changes that wasn't on that list was this abortion funding plank. Democrats figured it out after it got out of committee, and now they're lighting their hairs on fire to try to stop it.
But Dom, some stuff the public doesn't understand. It's too hard. This one's easy. I mean, first of all, minimum wage, every single place it polls. Nobody thinks in 2015 you can get by on $7 an hour. Okay, it just doesn't work. They're going to lose on that one. But the bigger stuff is they try to shut down the Homeland Security Department right when anybody picks up the papers, reads about the crazies in ISIL and the rest. People get that one. Sex trafficking? Really? Right? And now they're trying to say the food stamps, folks on food stamps, they want to kick them to the curb, 10 million Americans. This stuff, I think, is easy to understand, and Republicans completely going to get blamed on this one. Boehner's trying to tell the folks to get in line and stop this stuff. I don't think he's got the juice to make them do it.
Well, you know what's interesting, Richard? It's almost like everything's being thrown into these issues, into a big pot, and a big cooking pot, and mixed together, and it's going to come down to who's going to blink first, the Democrats or McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, as it relates to this abortion issue. But I think we're starting to see, Richard, where you're starting to see some of the priorities of Republican leadership. And that's one of the benefits of being in leadership. You get to push the agenda when you got the votes to back it up that you want to push. And so the next question is going to become, will the American people accept where the Republicans are going? And if that doesn't work, going back to an excellent point that was made earlier, because they have been very good at demonizing Obama, taking something that was outrageous to the American people, an issue, and flipping it and blaming the president. And in the past, the public has gone along with it.
But historically, they've overplayed their hand on stuff, taking us fiscal cliff here, the Homeland Security stuff. And they've always had the Democrats to save them from themselves because they had a split legislature. Now they got no one to blame but themselves. They're in charge of this.
Yeah, well, if the Democrats were smart, they would just say this is a governing issue. It shows that the Republicans can't govern, and they would make it a broader issue than just any one of these specific issues that nobody will understand by themselves. And that's where the Democrats have an opportunity. The Republicans have to show that they can govern. Their problem is that they are turning into the Democrats, where there are various factions of these of groups. And it's going to be up to the leadership to remind each other that if they move forward together, they will all be successful. And if they decide that they're going to run in their own direction, that they will all fail.
But every time I hear, that Boehner's finally got his caucus under control, I then see a week later you got
That's
somebody
impossible.
that's going off.
It's impossible,
And
Richard.
that may be the bigger concern here. I mean, we're still far enough away from the election that I don't know if this plays at the polls or if people will even remember it. The real question is, can Boehner and McConnell organize their caucuses to prevent a government shutdown, to prevent the debt limit, the bigger issues that are coming up where they really need to be united, or it really will be a crisis of governance that voters will remember?
I'm really curious when we come back from break who's on what side of this one. There's a push going on right now at the city council to let non-citizens vote in some New York City elections. We're going to talk about both the plan and the pushback it's getting.